Coming to you from the heart of the Great White North. Welcome to the Canadian Prepper Podcast. Immerse yourself in the world of preparedness with insights from seasoned experts and a touch of Canadian practicality. Your go-to source for all things survival, resilience, and self-reliance. Now, let's kick off another episode packed with knowledge and strategies to ensure you're ready for whatever life may throw your way. Stay tuned and let the journey to preparedness begin.
Welcome to episode 230 of the Canadian Prepper Podcast. We're recording February 11th, 2024. My name is Ian. I'm a homesteader on Vancouver Island who has no idea how OPSEC works, but I do like making propeller noises. So I guess I'm the resident expert tonight. Eric refused to take off his propeller beanie tonight. We had a big fight. He decided to show up, take off at the last minute and not show up for the show. So here I am kind of like guest hosting, I guess.
And I'm Jeff. I'm based in Central Ontario. I am a target shooter, ham radio operator, general overall handyman, and weather nerd.
And I'm Terry. I live in sunny Central Ontario, and I'm a starving indie author, terrible hunter, pathetic fisherman, and now I'm an aspiring drone pilot.
Sorry, I had to add something there. Am I missing something here? Yeah. If you want to help support the show, destroy your OPSEC and buy some swag. We have both the Canadian Prepper Podcast t-shirt and the tactical Velcro patch at www.prepperpodcast.ca. All proceeds help cover our podcast costs, and maybe Eric will come back at some point. Who knows?
Yeah, from that money.
If you're enjoying the show, please take a few minutes to submit a review, whether you have where you found us. We want your feedback, good or bad, and we also invite you to reach out and tell us something that you learned this week. You can email us at feedback@prepperpodcast.ca.
All right, everybody's in a new role tonight, so we're all like stumbling over everything. This is awesome.
Yeah.
We have some high altitude content for this episode. We're going to start off with some relevant news, update you on the personal preps, and we'll get into the main topic, which is drones in preparedness. All right, news time. I guess it would be, I'll start off here. Relevant article. So Russia launched a 45 drone attack on Ukraine a couple days ago. It was successful. So, interestingly enough, so like when you have that many drones going in at once, it's going to overwhelm the missile batteries that are sitting there because they're only designed for like one or two, small bombers or fighters coming in. So it kind of shows you the changing nature of warfare, I guess, with all this drone stuff. So you can imagine down the road for cost effectiveness and not putting lives at risk and everything else. It's actually a very interesting development with this Ukraine thing.
So did, and maybe I'm getting this wrong, but there was that attack on the U.S. Forces there in Jordan a few weeks ago. Three U.S. service members were killed.
Yep.
I had heard that that was also a drone attack, but what they did is they had the attack drone follow a U.S. drone into the area, and the I guess whoever was monitoring or whatever got confused, and they identified the bad drone as a good drone and led it into the airspace, and it bombed them.
Wow. And when you think about it, like, because there's no human in the airplane, one drone could literally be flying on top of the other drone, and they look like one return on the radar screen, so it wouldn't be that hard to do, and nobody's going to notice it if they're both unmanned, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm just like that. That's just what I heard. I can't verify any of that, but that was one of the things that I heard, which I kind of thought was kind of interesting. If somebody could do that, and as you say, if they're unmanned, why not? You could be one on top of the other.
Yeah, and I think on I don't know if it was AliExpress or Temu or one of those sites, they were actually offering drones for sale, like military drones for sale that you can actually put a warhead on. And they were like 26,000 a piece or something. So yeah. they were obviously selling them to somebody, and they finally had to take them down about 2 weeks ago, I guess. But they literally had like the full on military, like 500 kilo nose cone drone for sale, which was, I was like, wow, that's kind of bold, but
yeah.
Anyway, Houthis are probably buying them for attacking ships out in the Red Sea.
Yeah, I'll take a gross or whatever, right? Like,
because they're using them too.
Yeah,
and,
no, it's amazing.
it's pretty popular.
Well, and you think about the relative ease to learn how to fly something like that versus like training a bomber pilot or a fighter pilot, and then if the drone gets shot down, nobody gets hurt, and you can still reuse the pilot and everything else. It's cost effective for sure, right?
Cost effective, a lot of bang for the buck, because they're using $1 million missiles to shoot down these crappy old friggin' drones.
Yeah, if you're shooting down a $20,000 drone with $1 million missile, who's gonna lose eventually, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, that's basically how they won Vietnam and Afghanistan. Basically, it's just an expense outlay. But anyway, on that note, Council of Foreign Relations, which is everybody's favorite group with the prepper community, like right up there with the WEF and everything else. But they had an article here about how the drone war in the Ukraine is transforming conflict, which I thought I'd throw a link in the show notes too. And then also, PBS did a special that basically said the same thing. So down in the States, they had a TV show and a news article where they were basically just saying that, yeah, thanks to drones, don't expect to fight the same war over and over again. So I thought it was worth a shot to take a look at anyway.
Yeah.
One other article I just want to throw in there, Quebec City, just out of the blue, they just said, we're banning the use of wood stoves immediately, like starting now. So no notice, just all of a sudden they said due to air quality issues, which funnily enough, the air quality was actually good in Quebec City that day, but they banned wood stoves because of air quality concerns.
Yeah, I read that over and I looked at a couple of other articles. It's a bit of, I'm not saying that they've upscaled the article, but it was actually brought in 2021. And it does say that when the air quality reaches a certain level, that they ban all not fossil fuel. They called it solid fuel burning. Doesn't matter whether it's a certified wood stove or not. If it uses what they call solid fuel, the exception they do say is you are exempt if that's your only heating source. I think it's a kind of a little funny being the weather guy. A lot of the times in the winter when it is really, really, really cold, you don't have much wind, and the warm air above the extreme cold caps the air from being able to circulate. And that's really when you do get some bad air times. And that's when you actually are going to need your wood stove or need your other way to heat. So,
yeah, because you get the inversion happening where the hot air is up high and it doesn't want to move because everything's where it wants to be, right? The cold air is lower and the hot air is higher. But I thought that was just Montreal that had that before, but I guess it's Quebec City now too?
I don't think Montreal has it, and I was unaware of this Quebec City ban, even though it's been there since 21. What Montreal did is starting in October of this year, they banned any new residential builds or any what they called significant remodels or whatever you're doing at your house, that you can't have any fossil fuel appliances. So no gas stoves, no gas dryers, no gas water heaters, no gas furnaces, none of that. It's all got to be electric. So that's what Montreal did. They have not, to my knowledge, banned wood stoves at this point.
Yeah, well, it's so funny how they could just go from city to city and change the rules too. It's like they make it a province thing or whatever, but it's like, I don't know. People have had those things forever, and a lot of like you said, a lot of it's the primary source of heat. And when it gets cold, maybe those heat pumps or the baseboard heaters aren't going to keep up anyway. So
nope.
Anyway, especially
coming to a community near you.
Well, especially those heat pumps, I think it was below minus 10 or plus 10. They really start to fall off a cliff for efficiency, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and apparently, so I heard somebody said in another forum I was in, they said once they reach once the outside temperature reaches minus 25, they're basically useless.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that's handy.
Yeah.
That happens here in Canada, right?
Mm-hmm. Occasionally, yeah.
Not
this year, but other years. Yeah.
Awesome.
So moving on, and another nicely political move that is talking about useless. Canada declares Flipper Zero public enemy number one in the car theft crackdown. I will readily admit I know nothing about this Flipper Zero, but basically what I've heard is it can copy your key fob code, but your code rotates, so it copies it once, but the next time it goes to use it, it's useless and it won't work. And yeah, I'm not sure that. I mean, they're wanting, obviously the government wants to make it look like they're trying to do something instead of doing the real thing and actually cracking down on car thefts and actually dealing with the criminals in a proper way. They're gonna ban something that, so I've heard, is not very much responsible for many car thefts.
Yeah, because basically you have to be like a perfect storm of situational stuff where you got a car owner far enough away from his car to not activate the lock, but to be picked up on your Flipper Zero, so you can use that code to get into the car. But I mean, of course, that's where the Slim Jim comes in handy, or just some porcelain off a spark plug if you really want to get in the car that bad. I mean, it makes no sense. It's like, just like anything else, whether it be the Van of Peace in downtown Toronto or the average mass shooting or whatever. It's like it's the person behind the item that's the problem, not the actual item itself. So again, banning a piece of equipment is not going to fix your human crime problem.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Anyway.
No. And for my little bit of a news item, it's been in the news here this week that there's a number of municipalities across Ontario that have been suffering from drug overdoses, drug poisonings. Belleville's one. They actually declared a state of emergency, didn't want anybody going downtown because the paramedics and so on are having such a deal trying to deal with this because there's so much. Guelph's another one, Hamilton another one, and there's a number of them, and they're all like drugs that just become an epidemic and overdoses, and we just need more free drugs for everybody. That's all.
Yeah, free injection sites, everything else. Yeah.
Yeah. Bring it on.
Yeah, I was going to say, don't even get me started on those.
Me neither.
What they call safe injection sites, where it's a place you can go and do your illegal drugs, and nobody's supposed to turn you in or rat you out or do anything like that. I mean, and of course, at the end of the day, all of that comes out of our taxpayers' pocket, which is, I would much rather my money go towards a detox. Getting them in and getting them off of the drugs to begin with, instead of just giving them free drugs and letting them overdose on it, and then having to pay all the healthcare costs and everything else to do that. I know that's not maybe a popular position on my part, but that's my position. So I've had quite the discussion with a few people on it, and it's a very polarizing topic, but that's my position, and I stand by it all the way. So.
Yeah, and it's interesting how some countries can, produce fentanyl or whatever out in the open. It's not even a problem, and of course it creates a market over here, right, when it's illegal because they banned a substance or an item, and other people have the free ability to make it, and so sure enough, you've got organized crime involved too, which never helps. But anyways, yeah, the funny thing is actually I passed by somebody today overdosing in Vancouver, and yeah, it's just everywhere. So everywhere,
yeah, it's unreal.
And of course, the resources it ties up. I mean, I think there was like 6 EMTs there, and so I'm like, that's just for one person. So like, I can't even imagine trying to be an EMT and keep up with regular stuff like heart attacks and falling downstairs versus all the other stuff going on too, right? So it's a little extreme. But anyway, shall we move on to what we've done lately for preps?
Let's do it.
Sure. I did some food prep. I made. I think I've mentioned it before. I love my Instant Pot. I did 3 separate batches of chili in my Instant Pot. I canned. I know they call it canning, but you use glass bottles. I canned 2 bottles just as an experiment to see how it was going to work, what was it going to look like, all that. I think it worked out okay. Looks like the bottles have sealed fine, everything. So I tucked them away, and I'll go back and check them out in a month. And if I'm not here after that, you'll know why I'm not here. I did some fuel rotation, and funny enough, I picked up a ham radio for my truck from Eric, of all people.
No way.
I don't have it installed yet. That's the next project, but it's not much of a radio, but it's something. It's a start, because we all know you can go down a super big rabbit hole with ham radio. So I'm just starting off really, really small and really slow and moving it up from there.
Awesome. On the topic of trucks and stuff, we need to outlaw reciprocating saws to prevent catalytic converter thefts, says Gary. So
Yeah, that'll do it.
Yeah, exactly. It's maybe we should just do a Sawzall registry. I don't know. Maybe that'd help.
Yeah, that's an idea.
As for myself, I just did a little fuel rotation. Unfortunately, I was away from the acreage for most of the week, just doing work stuff. But in the small time I was here, I was able to just emptying out one of the sheds because I'm going to change it from a tarp shed to an actual legit steel roof wood beam shed. So I kind of had to clear out some space for that, and just trying in the process of cleaning up around the area, I had to do like a dump run and collect up all the trash that was kind of like clogging up the area. And basically the other thing I've been doing basically is prepping for a surprise podcast appearance that shall be announced next week. Dun, dun, dun.
Dun, 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 dun.
Yeah, so that should be interesting. That should be a good one. Eric said to say that he got his drone license.
Well, of course he did. Somebody has to be the teacher's pet, right? So
that's right. So I mean, at least one person took up the challenge and he did it. And I mean, he saved it for this episode just to let everybody know. And that's pretty much it for myself and Eric.
Do you want to touch on your family's little medical episode and how well they did, and
that's a good point.
How teaching your kids is a good thing?
That's a very good point. I forgot all about that. There you go. So last night I actually got a message from my daughter. Actually, I guess it was more like yesterday afternoon. Anyway, daughter just said she cut off the tip of her finger, and she's on the way to the hospital. So it turns out what happened was both of my daughters were in the same room together. One cut off the tip of her finger. Kitchen accident, of course, and so the other daughter immediately knew where the first aid kit was, broke open the first aid kit, knew exactly what to do, broke out the gauze, the vet wrap, everything else, put some pressure on it, was able to get the other one calmed down, into the car, everything else, right to the hospital, and they didn't need to call the ambulance, they didn't need to call anything else, and they knew exactly what to do. There was no panic or no whatever, so they both kind of worked together as a team, got everything taken care of, and 6 stitches later, she's looks like she's back to the same length of a finger as before, so that's a good thing. And so it was pretty good, the fact that, like, because we had prepped them ahead of time with the first aid courses, what to do, pressure, all the stuff, and remain calm and all that stuff, and the fact that the one was able to drive the other one, it worked out really well. So had a little proud prepper dad moment yesterday, so it's pretty good.
Right on. That's good.
Yeah.
Excellent.
No, as for me,
the biggest part is to remain calm, right? As soon as people see blood, they just panic, and it was a good story.
That was good. That's good. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the only commentary I got was like, "Here's what you need to replace from the kit," and spiced up my day. That was about it. So, and I was just getting text message updates along the whole course of the day, so it was pretty good.
Yeah, you gotta like that one.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Okay. As for yours truly here, well, I've been working diligently about updating food stores. So I've added some shelving, and I picked up a lot of freeze-dried food, and just trying to get some more cans in place and so on. Kind of paranoid about the goings on in the world these days, so I've been doing my best to fix that up. And with this drone before I get to the drone conversation, I've also been updating some first aid kits too after having the Altons on last week, and talking about first aid and so on. So I took some of their tips and ordered me a few more items to put in my bags. And yes, I've been working on the drone pilot. I decided I was going to take a course before I tried the test. So I took a course from Coastal Drone out in BC. It's a very good course. If anybody's interested in taking a course to learn a bit of drone flying, I would highly recommend them guys. I think you don't need it for an under 250 gram drone, but just like getting a restricted PAL, I figured, well, maybe I'm just going to do it, because one of these days they might decide that they're not going to let anybody do it anymore. So I just didn't get my license, even though I don't need it. So that's where I am.
Fair enough. I guess moved on to the main topic. So I guess I'll start off here, but yeah, guys, interrupt me for sure along the way here. I guess we started off about 3 years ago when Hughes was still on regularly on the podcast, and Hughes was mentioning that out east it comes in very handy to have a drone for various purposes, whether it be like just scouting down forestry roads or whatever. And at first, I kind of scoffed. I didn't think the drone thing would actually come in handy for preparedness usage, but I think it was actually on the podcast he kind of convinced me on the go. So I did a little more digging into it, and I decided to get into it, and it's it's actually got a lot of uses. I was surprised. But basically, as far as uses go, is limited only by your imagination. So like ham radio, I think it's better to one of those things. It's better to figure out how to work these things now than to kind of break it open the package when things are actually going sideways. Because as you guys, well, I'm sure you've tried it with your friends there, Jeff. So it's not exactly easy to control right off the bat, right? You kind of needed to learn how to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I mean, like, there's like a couple basic controls to it and stuff, but it's just acquired skill set more than anything else. And so yeah, it's just. I guess if you want to figure out how to connect it to your phone to record stuff or how to work the actual controls, it's just better to do it well in advance. So before we get going on the actual drone chat itself, talk about when and where you need a license. So like you mentioned, Terry, there's a weight category below which no license is needed. And you said it's 250 grams?
250 grams or below. You don't need a license and you don't need to register your machine.
Yeah.
Go over that threshold, and then all of a sudden, the rules change, and you have to have a pilot's license or a drone pilot's license, and then you have to register it with the good old folks at Transport Canada.
Yeah, if I were just talking about registrations for the Sawzalls, but yeah, so they actually got
So
we got a drone registry.
Sorry, my question for the weight then, Terry, the 250 grams and below, is that when you buy the machine that it's under that, or if you put, say, an infrared camera on it, or you put something else on it and it takes it over the weight, do you now have to technically license it, even though the initial machine was under 250?
Yeah, it's actually the total takeoff weight. So if you have
weight.
There's actually like some of these Mavic models you could buy, they're like 249.5 grams. So the minute you add anything, you actually have to register it and have to have a license to do it. And it's a weird thing. It's not like max takeoff weight or whatever. It's just it's what it is at the time. So it's a very tricky situation because it can lead to some fines, which we'll talk about down the road here too.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I know with mine, with just the basic battery, you get about a 20-minute life out of the battery. You can buy a higher capacity battery, but once you put that battery in there, you're over 250 grams because it's just a little bit heavier. So.
By weird, it's about the same chance of getting busted by like the FCC or something down the States, for the radio stuff. But if by chance some Transport Canada guy happened to wander by and notice you had the oversized battery, he could technically give you a rough time, which is ridiculous. But I mean, they could still technically do it. So, there is a weight category where you don't need license. After that, we talked about having a license up to the weight of 25 kilos. So basically, from 1 pound to 50 pounds, you can, as long as you have a basic drone pilot certificate, you can get away with it. Above 25 kilos or 50 pounds roughly, you're going to need a higher level of license, like the advanced, or even get a special flight permit, because at that point you're talking about like Amazon delivery drones, like not so much weaponized, but like I guess search and rescue drones, specialized items. So they're going to have to not only have a higher level of skill required, but also just they need to know you're out there, because it actually starts to become like a large enough weight that can become a hazard to airplanes. And so that's why they start like giving steps of weights, because I think at 250 grams, even if you hit like a small single engine like Cessna 172 or something, it's kind of like a semi truck hitting like a smart car, right? It's not going to cause any real problem, but I mean, but in reality, it's like, once they start getting 50 pounds, it's like hitting a goose, and we all know we all seen bird damage on airplanes, right? So
exactly.
So anyways, like I mentioned, the takeoff weight, includes lights, camera, sensors, comms equipment, anything you attached, or even if you have something that's like hanging from a string underneath the belly, that's still part of your takeoff weight. So you got to watch that as well. There's two types of drones really nowadays. There's the fixed wing, which basically looks like a fighter jet, and they have a camera sticking out front, and you have to you can put on some goggles if you want, and you basically get a first person view, and they go super fast. and they go super far. There's actually a video of a guy flying in one of those fixed wing drones from one Hawaiian island to another one. Now, don't ask me how he was able to keep that in line of sight, but that's neither here nor there.
Yeah.
But anyway, but I think most people are familiar with these quadcopters, like these kind of drones right here. And the reason I think everybody likes these ones, I think you'll probably agree, Terry, is like you've seen them, the videos and stuff where they're more maneuverable. They can come to a stop in the air.
It's amazing what they can't do. Yeah.
Yeah, they don't really need a takeoff area. They don't need to roll on the ground. They just like really come in just like a helicopter and just land straight down. So I think that's why everybody's really liking those. And plus, you can literally let go of the controls and they'll just float there. So which is
it'll hold its own. And,
where the one that the Houthis are using are always moving. So as soon as you let go, it's going to start going off course or whatever. And so you want to make sure you're going to want to keep an eye on that at all times. So I could see why the quadcopters are definitely more popular. So. Let's see here. I mentioned the weight, but also if you're flying these things in a national park, as it stands right now, I'm not talking about like, in emergencies or, end of the world situation, but like in normal ops here, you can't fly these things in national parks without permission. Obviously, if you're within 5 miles of an airport, like in the actual ATC control zone, you need special permission ahead of time, meaning you either have to make a phone call plus maybe a radio call, and depends where you are. Sometimes they just won't let you in there. Like I don't think you're gonna have any luck finding one of these on short final for a runway in Pearson or anything. So they tend to get a little bit upset about that.
Yeah. The other one that
being somebody who knows a bit about the aviation industry, Ian, are drone incursions that much of a problem?
Well, they were originally
more than we think they were.
They actually did some mitigation factors. So what happened was some of the more later generation drones actually won't even take off if you're in a control zone of an airport of a certain weight category. Like obviously the special purpose drones, they're like have a special sensor or whatever, their commercial operations. Those clearly are not going to be limited by GPS locations because they're obviously professionals are coordinating with people. But the small drones like the DJIs, like the Airs and the Mavics, the Mavic Minis and all that stuff, they literally have a GPS lockout. So, and I don't think it's pretty easy to jailbreak those. Where if you're like anywhere near a runway in Pearson, you're not going to get airborne. It won't even do anything. I think it'll go up to about 4 feet and then it just stops. So you can diddle around a little bit with the propellers and stuff, but that's about it. So there's one thing. Of course, nowadays people are phoning ahead and letting people know that they're doing some drone work. So say if you're in like not so much a controlled airport, but like a local airport, say out in the middle of Northern Ontario, like Owen Sound or something, and you talk to the tower guys, they're going to allow you to fly, and they'll just advise the planes coming and going that you might be like north of the runway below 1,000 feet or something, and that way they know where to stay away from, and they just kind of have I guess factors in place to mitigate everything. So there is some workarounds now.
Yeah, and we're not allowed to buzz fire. If there's a wildfire going on, you're supposed to stay out of that area. And I don't even think if the police have got somebody pulled over on the side of the road, they want you buzzing over there doing a little recon. I think you could probably get in crap for that.
Well, so there's kind of a catch-all legal term in Transport Canada's stuff, and it basically says you can't basically annoy people, interfere with people, or fly over people, like literally, like physically over them. So that's going to preclude you from bugging the cops too much. But also, every time there's a forest fire, they put out what they call a notice to air emissions. They just changed the name recently, and what they'll do is they will say from below 1,000 feet and within 5 miles of this GPS location, you can't go because there's forestry action in place, so it's helicopters or water bombers coming and going, so you're not even allowed in those places. And there's also other restricted stuff, like every time Justin Trudeau decides to invade stuff, like Sheila Cop Center or something, they won't allow you to fly over there, right? And
no.
The Parliament buildings, for example, have a permanent flight restriction area around it, so you're not allowed to go kamikaze your drones in there like anybody would, because the drones are too expensive. But so you can't do in certain areas for sure. If you are going to operate in the airport area, not only do you need to be able to get a hold of somebody instantly on the phone, but also they recommend that you have a airband radio, which some of these Baofangs, like these ones, the UV-17s, actually have airband on them, so you can't transmit, but you can certainly receive. And because it's AM versus FM, it's not every FM radio has these things, right? So you can actually listen and see the other or hear the other planes coming and going, which actually would help. So if you are going to get serious about it, that's an option, just a bell thing, so you can listen in. Age limits. I think we're all safely in the age limit zone. Like we're probably all old enough, yeah. So
yeah, we're good there.
But if you are over 14, you can get your basic. If you're over 16, you can get your advanced. Or just like firearms or anything else, as long as you're under supervision, you don't need license. You can technically operate as long as that person that's licensed is right beside you the whole time and ready to take over. So that's a good intro thing if you really want to give it a try. Getting licensed itself is not that difficult. I'm going to throw a couple links here in the show chat in a second here, but there are Transport Canada notes that are available. There are YouTube videos that are available that will actually like walk you through it over the course of half an hour. And basically, once you watch that, there's about a 99% chance you're going to pass the exam. So Don Joyce has a great YouTube channel, and I'll throw the link in there like in a second. The main reason to get licensed nowadays, I think, is not so much that you want to get licensed and comply with a man or anything else, but you just don't want to face an extra tax in the form of a fine, right? So last thing you want to do is give more money to the state. So I mean, I'm not saying you need it for zombie apocalypse purposes, but you certainly need it for everyday purposes, just to get competent with working your drone, right? Because I don't want to pay extra money if I don't have to. So so for the sake of $10, 35 questions, you have 90 minutes to do it. It's a 65% pass mark, and in reality, it's an open book exam. You get an instant license sent to your computer and a PDF certificate you can print off, and it's I think they've got 50,000 licensed drone pilots already in Canada. So it's certainly growing fast. So questions so far?
Not so far, I don't think.
Well, we're pretty good, I think.
All right. Well, after you've passed your exam and kicked butt on that, I guess you're going to want to buy yourself a drone. We talked about the light ones. There's lots of ones available. The DJI brand seems to be really popular with all sorts of various models available and everything else. I think I might have totally screwed up that link, but anyways, there's a bunch of them I just dropped there. Anyway, so yeah, once you get that plane bought, you're gonna have to register it. So if it's over 250 grams, you're gonna have to register it. You can do it online for free. I think the first time is free, and if you want to change the registration later, or if you lose it, I think that it becomes a bit of a problem or something to get rid of that registration. They actually charge you to erase the registration, and you have to report it, of course, if you lose one, because it might be in the middle of an airport or something. So you can certainly purchase one without having to register it, and you can certainly purchase one without a license, but before you actually go flying, all that has to be taken care of. Another thing you have to have is a logbook. 2 technically, but 1 to keep track of all your flights, which I know sounds silly, and I'm not 100% in agreement with it, but that is the law of the land right now. The other one you have to do is a maintenance manual. You have to, every time if you change so much as a propeller, like if you just, rip off one of these ones that just have like a little screw attachment, and because you ding the propeller on the side of a wall or something, you just put a replacement one on there, you actually have to write it down and make note of when it happened. And I think the reason for that is in case something goes sideways, they'll try and figure out what happened afterwards. But no fudging allowed. It is a legal document. So if you do go flying or if you don't go flying, you can't really say one or the other. And another reason to log stuff is that there's actually a recurrent, like a training requirement. So you have to actually go online once a year and once every 2 years. I can't remember. Anyways, and then just kind of prove that you've actually done enough work, and then do like an online 10-question exam just to make sure you're still kind of up on your stuff.
Yeah, I forget how long it is, but you have to requalify, right?
Yeah. Jenny mentions that this is the States for sure. Some people are using them for deer retrieval on location down here in the States. We'll get back to that for sure on hunting, and because it's a bit of a different scene up here for sure. To nobody's surprise, I think.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, before we get to actual prep uses here, a couple no-nos, just a reminder here, guys. So when you are flying a drone, it doesn't matter how heavy it is, and certainly for our purposes, can't go above 400 feet above ground level. So, basically it's 150 meters straight up. So, we're talking like 30-story building type of thing, tops, and so you'll clear the trees, and you'll probably get a couple hundred feet above the trees, and that's about as high as you can go. Most of the drones nowadays literally have a height above ground kind of function. They'll tell you exactly how high up you are, and they'll even start giving you alarms if you go above 400 feet.
Mhm.
Allegedly, I would not know, but I would just say, they'll warn you. So
Yeah, they'll tell you.
yeah, I mean, and in all fairness, I mean, like I could be 400 feet above ground, then go over a valley, then also I'm 600 feet above ground, and I'd have to dive down to maintain that contour with the land, right? So it's not intentional if it does happen sometimes, but obviously not all of the time is the ground flat below you. It's going to be undulated. So if you're at that 400 feet limit, yeah, you could run into some problems, right? So airplane, the reason for that is the airplanes are usually above 500 feet. So from personal experience, if you're in a sparsely settled area or like a just a non-urban environment, you can actually literally go down to 500 feet as long as you're clear of cloud and clear of other traffic with a small airplane. Unless you take off for landing, of course, then you can go lower. But yeah, usually they want to be at least 500 feet up. So that way, if you start going above 400 feet and you encroach upon where the airplanes usually are, well, then you're running into more problems, right?
Mhm.
There is a little toy now on these new ones that you'll see marked on the box. It's called ADSB, like Alpha Delta Sierra Bravo. And what that is that's actually stands for Autonomous Dependent Surveillance, and B means broadcast. So what it is I'm surprised I remembered that. So what it is
Very good.
every airplane is sending out a little message via what's called their transponder, and it tells you their altitude, tells you where they are relative to you, and everything else. So now, if you're flying your drone, even if you're below that 400 feet, you're going to get a little warning now that will say, bing, 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 airplane approaching. And so, if you happen to be playing silly bugger, if you're just a little bit worried about it, you can bring your drone back into land, and it usually gives you about 2 minutes notice. And it was actually kind of funny because where I am, there's like no airports around and no nothing. And I was bobbing around the house here, and I got the warning, and I just brought it back in and landed. And not even a minute later, plane goes right over the house. So it's just like, all right. And he was well below 400 feet, so I wouldn't be that guy to report him or anything. But it was like very interesting the fact that the drone knew there's a problem, and he didn't even know there was a problem because their airplanes aren't equipped with the high tech gear that our drones have. So
Cool.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Another thing you can't do in Canada, no carrying weapons of war. So
Surprise!
Yeah, it's in Canada. What are the odds, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, so I mean, you see those videos down in the States where the guy's mounted his Glock 17 to his drone, and he's got steps, so he presses the button and pulls the trigger, and he's able to like shoot stuff from his drone. Yeah, bit of a no here.
No,
just saying,
it's not going to fly here.
Yeah. I'm not going to read that one out loud because I'm certainly not going to. Yeah, let's just say it's possible to go higher than 400 feet.
Oh yeah.
Allegedly from listeners.
Allegedly.
Allegedly, I've heard something similar myself. Allegedly, but yeah, especially like if you're in the middle of nowhere, like I'm not saying what not to do, but clearly it's kind of interesting to see how high of an aerodynamic ceiling they can actually have with these little propellers, these little electric engines and stuff, because all they really are is they're just winding generators that are sitting there in the outboard pylons of each arm here, and they're just spinning based on how much current is going to them, and it's a fascinating piece of technology, really, and considering the fact that propellers are only like 5 inches across, I mean, if they can lift up a 2-pound item all the way up that high, that's pretty cool. So a couple other things available for your accessories for your drone. There are actually kits you can mount on the drone that will actually like kind of do a claw system around the drone. Actually has a hook or a drop system that you can actually, there's a couple optional buttons on your controller that will actually allow you to drop stuff from your drone for reasons. There's actually like a couple lights on these ones already here, but you can actually get a bigger spotlight you can have underneath, and you can actually turn on and off a spotlight if you want to light up an area, which is kind of cool. There's all sorts of accessories available online, so I think you're only limited by your imagination there too. A couple things with the drone stuff here, guys. Don't let your batteries flatten out because these batteries are not only expensive, but just due to the nature of how they're built, if they flatten out, they tend to be harder to maintain a charge later on. You can fly these things at night, and in normal times, the line of sight rule always applies. So if you're flying it over trees, that might run into a problem. You might have to stand on your house roof to make it work. But you're supposed to be able to always keep an eye on these things. So if it happens to, well, nowadays modern drones, if they run out of a signal for control, they're programmed to automatically fly back to their original departure point in the land. But that's not always the case with some of the cheaper drones or some of the older drones, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the whole idea is that you're supposed to be able to always bring it back on your own. And like a real pilot, you're not allowed to drink for 12 hours before you fly a drone.
No.
Oh, man, take all the fun out of everything, eh?
Exactly. I was going to say, like, if you're on a camping trip and things happen and you're flying a drone and again, like somebody could like harp on you for that, but it's just kind of a funny. They're very strict about that with the rules, and I can understand where they're coming from because they probably don't want people to get stupid and fly over people and buzz people or buzz wildlife or typical camping shenanigans, right? But they're very hard on that. So last big thing is do not fly these things over people unless you're doing a advanced drone thing where you're actually doing a commercial op and you have permission ahead of time and all this stuff. That's a big no-no in Canada. So the last thing we were going to mention, we kind of touched on it before, there was drones for hunting. Generally a no-no. So it depends on which province. Some provinces I think are still okay with it, but if you were using a helicopter back in the day, you couldn't hunt within 6 hours of flying in a helicopter. And their theory was that if you were like using the helicopter to scout a wildlife, you couldn't just land and shoot. And so they said you had to have a 6-hour wait between when you landed in the helicopter before you could actually go hunting. Well, now that with these drones, because they're so light and portable, and you can actually launch them from anywhere, you're actually not allowed to possess them in BC. And I think you said the same thing in Ontario, Terry?
Yeah, you can't be hunting with one. If you want to go out another time, you can go flying and scout around and look for spots, but you can't be actively hunting and having a drone with you, or they'll beat you up.
Yeah, and I think that well, then that case, now you're dealing with a conservation officer, which is actually a peace officer, not just some Transport Canada weenie. So
you're dealing with them. Yeah, exactly.
The guys with even less of a sense of humor. So, so it speaks to the efficiency of the drones, which is one thing for sure.
Well, you're dealing with the same guys who will take your truck and your boat for catching one fish over the limit.
They'll take your little drone too.
They don't play around.
And your firearms license and everything else.
Yeah, and anything else that just might happen to be around.
Yeah, but you had a good idea there, Terry. Before the show, you were mentioning that for scouting purposes for ahead of time.
Yeah, like for me, deer like acorns. So if you can buzz around once the leaves start to turn, the oak leaves always look a little different than everything else. Find yourself your patch of oak trees, and that's a potential hunting spot. So mark that on your map, and then go back there later on and go hunting. That's what I plan on doing, because I know you can find areas that have a good crop of oak trees, which means acorns, and deer love acorns, and so do turkeys too. I think you do the same thing for a few critters, but that'd be great for that, or finding a nice ridge or a location or a nice spot that might be a good place to set up a tree stand on a ridge or whatever. It's great for doing a little scouting, for sure.
Yeah, for sure. And we'll get into the other uses right away here, but it's a fascinating tool when you think about it, because like such a different perspective than just walking along the ground. And it might be like just 10 yards of trees, and then there might be the big oak stand that you might otherwise never have seen, right? So no,
you wouldn't see it unless you're up there, because once you're up there, then there's a crop of oak trees over there. Let's go and check that spot out, right? So,
yeah, you get 200 feet up, it changes your perspective quite a bit.
Sure. Big time.
Yeah,
big time.
All right, so uses for preps. Took us a while to get here, but here we are. The big one, obviously the one that everybody talks about is the visual scouting aspect. So that's what Hughes got me going on originally too. Most of these drones have 4K cameras or better nowadays. I don't know what the next thing is, but I think this one's a 4K. Anyway, so you're talking about like resolution and big zoom. Like you can like zoom these things out to an insane level, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if you take pictures ahead of time, you can always zoom in on the pictures later on and kind of look at stuff. You can attach forward-looking infrared radar. You can laser radar if you want to do a topography map of your area or whatever. The interesting thing is you can also put a giant overhead spotlight on. So if you happen to see somebody from a search and rescue perspective and you want to bring everybody in, you could just shine a big bright light and everybody kind of go towards the big bright light. So for search and rescue applications, I think Hughes even mentioned recently that they had an infrared one now that could actually spot people in the trees.
No doubt.
So yeah, that's huge, right? And think about the manpower that saves and the man hours that saves.
Yeah.
That's and Denny mentions that it would help with trapping as well. He's looking for places. Looking for places that be if you can use it for checking them as well.
Yeah.
I suppose if you want to see if your traps are actually like if you had enough space to see if your traps are actually full, it would be save you a big walk or a sled drive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you could. What I found going up, just trying to do a little photography, is this time of year when there's no leaves on the trees, you get up high like that and tilt your camera down, and you can see right down to the ground. I was picking up ATV tracks, snowmobile tracks, people going through the bush. It's just, you can see all kinds of stuff down there. It's amazing.
Yeah, so actually, I've got a thermal drone shot YouTube video I just found today because I was actually kind of curious. So down in the States, of course, they're using this for hog hunting, and so
Mhm.
they're flying around this thermal drone, and what they can see from the air is just insane. Like,
It's amazing what you can't see. Yeah.
wow! So from like a scouting purpose, it's just fantastic. So
Yeah.
when you're going around scouting, of course, you can record the video or the pictures right onto the SD cards that are in the drone, or
Hmm.
if you're using your phone as a controller, which some of the drones do, some of them don't, but you can actually like just click a button and save a picture to your phone, or sometimes it's recording the whole video to your phone. So
Yeah.
even if you lose the drone, you still have the video, which is kind of cool.
Yeah.
I'll talk about losing the drone in a second because I had a buddy that's lost one, which was actually pretty funny. So obviously, in case of emergencies, you could see intruders on the property. See over the
Mhm.
next ridge, like you're driving down these one-way forestry roads, and then you go up a big steep ridge, and before you go zorching over that ridge, if you're kind of concerned about the road condition or maybe like a roadblock or whatever, you can send that drone up just for 10 seconds and say, oh yeah, it looks good, and then bring it right back down and take a look. Because
Mhm.
frankly, I think if you sent that thing ahead and it got shot down by a shotgun blast, I'd rather have the drone take that than myself. So it's a nice expendable kind of option to look ahead.
Hmm.
You know?
Yeah.
Mhm.
They're noisy. It's amazing how noisy they are. Mine's just like a little mosquito, and it's pretty loud. Like if you're buzzing around up not too high, people could see it, and they're not seeing it one thing, but hearing it. The
Oh
little
yeah.
bugger, the little bugger will disappear pretty quick. That little 250-gram drone, and you'll lose sight of it real fast. But you can hear it.
So these this Air 2 that I got, the propellers have like winglets on the end, so like they're curved up a bit, and so they actually had a big noise reduction on these ones, which I thought was pretty cool because I saw an Air 1, the original one, and it was pretty loud, and then this one got a little quieter. So when you're 400 feet up, yeah, you can still hear a little mosquito buzz, but it's not bad. But now I guess the third version is like almost like the old Airwolf TV show. It was or Blue Thunder. That was it. They had whisper mode, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so like I guess they are a lot quieter now. So now you could actually be 400 feet up. You could be over somebody. They might not even know you're there, which is kind of cool.
Mm-hmm.
And that can be good and bad. You
Yeah.
you may not want them to know you're there for recon purposes, or you want them to know you're there as a deterrent.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah, we're gonna talk about that right off the bat too. So yeah, I
Oh.
mean they both have good purposes, right? Um, Another thing for sailors, sailboat users and regular boat users, if you're coming into a bay or whatever, you throw that drone up in the air, and now all of a sudden that log that's floating in the water just below the surface, you might not be able to see it when you're steering your boat, but you'll be able to see it
Mm-hmm.
from up above perfectly.
Yeah.
And you'll know exactly where that log jam is or whatever that might take out your hull or whatever. So there's certainly a safety aspect when you're going to unfamiliar places.
Mm-hmm.
Spot that ambush. One thing the Ukraine war, I guess reports have been saying is that there's no safe space anymore, right? Like you can't just go in a trench, nobody's going to see you, or a foxhole. Now, thanks to drones, these things are bombing around constantly, and some of the guys are saying there's not even any point in digging a foxhole anymore because they know exactly where you are because the drones are just pointing out everything from a just like almost continuous basis, like aerial recon.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just like I said, it's changing the face of like a small scale war like that for sure.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so we mentioned the deterrent just a couple minutes ago there. So presence of drones lets you know that you see them, and it makes them reconsider the ease of the target. So if you're like sitting there and you might be by yourself, but if you have a drone buzzing over a group of pirates are sitting outside there, they might be like, oh, okay, well, he knows we're here, so he knows we're coming, so maybe that's not a good idea to go in there. It certainly speaks to a higher level of technology or preparedness. So if somebody was like looking for an easy mark, maybe that would deter them for sure.
Mm-hmm.
This is actually some of the stuff a buddy of mine has done a few times. So message delivery. He's actually
Yes.
attached a paper envelope with a letter in it, taped it to the drone, flown it over the neighbors, dropped it off. Neighbor gives him a thumbs up on the camera and then takes off again. And then Yeah, he's actually done that. He's attached a thumb drive, so you could send a bunch of files over stuff. So, like, I mean, who knows what uses they'd have for these things? But like, I mean, that's kind of cool.
Mm-hmm.
One thing he was telling me about, and I tried and it worked, is you can actually, if you have no cell service where you are, you can actually send a message, say on Signal, and just hit send. And of course, it won't go anywhere until you get a signal. But he basically put his cell phone in a basket, carried it straight up to the 400 feet, and it was just enough to catch a tower, and then sent the signal, and then it received a couple messages, and then he brought it right back down.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Good idea.
yeah, it's fantastic. So, and same thing, you've seen those videos of guys doing repeaters, like field expedient receivers with repeaters with a couple of UV5Rs, where you set one up as the receiver, one as a transmitter. So you can actually do like an airborne, small scale, like repeater process if you needed to. So if you had a couple buddies hunting, you throw a repeater straight up with the drone 400 feet, and then all of a sudden you got like a mini mountain you can go bounce signals off of. It's really neat, some of the stuff the guys have come up with.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, it's amazing what they'll do. Eric mentioned the other day you could use the drone for like setting up an antenna if you want to take an HF antenna and like drape it over a tree. That's one way to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Because sometimes getting that first wire over the tree is the toughest one to get. Amazon's taken this one to heart. You can do item delivery with a detachable hook or a basket, like I was mentioning before there. Same buddy decided to try landing water balloons on hay bales. So he was able to come over and drop water balloons and kind of go around. So it's pretty amazing what you can do with these things. So use your imagination with that one. Predator deterrence. So if you had like coyotes coming into your farm field or whatever, if you think that the pirates might be afraid of the drones, imagine how a coyote would react to something like that buzzing around them, right?
Yeah, and that brings up another point about hunting. It's illegal to harass wildlife. Like predators would be one thing, but to go harassing, looking at the eagle nests or something like that, or harassing wildlife or deer or moose or whatever. If you get caught doing that, you're in doo-doo. Farmer could probably get away with doing coyotes and so on. Yes, for sure. But
oh yeah, no, I mean that of course is mostly emergencies too. But say though, if you have coyotes, go around the periphery of your fence for the sheep, you get that drone within 100 meters of them, and he's gonna be like, "What the hell is that?" Because if you see dogs, the way the dogs and even the alpaca reacts to the drone, some of them are frightened, some of them just mesmerized by it, but most of the people are like, "This is not cool." They usually just end up walking away. So, yeah, it's definitely something that animals are not used to seeing. Last but not least, I was going to mention barter. So if you know it's a cool hobby at times, but you can maybe offer up specialized equipment, skill set in emergencies, like finding somebody with your infrared, or maybe taking a look for somebody at something that they can't see otherwise. Who knows? But it's down the road, you never know. I mean, maybe if they're drafting people, you might have a skill set to keep you away from the battlefield. So you can be a drone operator and go live in Vegas or something. Just a thought.
Yeah, you never know these days.
Yeah. Non-preps bleeds into photography hobby or a small business. So obviously, if you get good with the drone and you're pretty comfortable controlling one, you can start taking pictures for real estate companies. I don't know how many times you've seen a boat for sale or something on YouTube and they do like a flyby and it looks all cool and stuff. And yeah, the guys are making not a killing, but they're certainly finding steady work with drone photography. I don't think you're ever going to be a rich man because of it, but it'll be certainly better than nothing. Helps with the YouTube content. If Eric wanted to sex up the channel a bit, I'm sure you could put in some drone footage as well. And then other than that, there is one last opportunity. You could actually start instructing because there's other drone pilots that want to get their advanced ticket or their special purpose ticket, and you could become an instructor where you actually do flight tests for these guys. And these guys are charging like $200 or $400 for that test, which is crazy. But I did my advanced exam and I was going to go do my advanced flight test, but then I found out how much you want to charge me for it, and since I have no intention of doing anything commercial with it, I was like, never mind.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
I was kind of blown away by how much they actually charge for those things. So good for them. I mean, they're making a killing. But
yeah, not interested. Thanks.
Yeah. Questions so far, Jeff?
No. Just trying to absorb a crap ton of information, and good stuff.
All right. Some funny recommends for you. So recommended stuff for the drone: spare parts kit, mainly spare propellers, because call me crazy, but most people will eventually smack one into a tree or a wall or a person by accident or whatever.
I
And you're
flew
gonna
mine into me one day.
yeah, exactly. And like when you're learning that skill set, everything's backwards. Like if the drone's facing you,
If it's
and
facing you, it's backwards.
yeah,
Yes.
and all of a sudden you're like, "Whoops, I meant to go the other way," and before you know it, you're like smashing into your own car or whatever. So yeah, spare parts kit for sure, like which comes with extra blades generally, as well as some other parts as well. Extra batteries. So most of these DJI drones come with a Fly More combo. They might have changed the name of it now, but anyways, it usually comes with instead of one battery, it's got 3 batteries. It's got a charging station. It's got all sorts of stuff. Yeah, definitely worth it every penny because I think one of these batteries, it's like buying a cordless drill, right? Like the worst part is the batteries. So if you get the batteries on the cheap to start with, you might as well just get 3 of them, and that way you can like use one for flying and have the other one charging while you're flying around, and it kind of extends your day a bit versus having to fly for 30 minutes, come back, wait for an hour for it to charge, and then go ahead. So it's
and then the cold affects them too. So you won't have as long a duration for your flight as on a warm day. So if you got that spare battery there to pop in, you go for a buzz, come back, pop another battery in, and you can go flying.
So what is the average flying time on a battery in decent weather? Like, could you fly for like 2 hours or?
No, so this one's it was at the time the highest one available was 36 minutes. That's in ideal conditions as long as you're not like jigging and jagging too much around. If you're just doing straight and level slow flight. But
so 36 minutes, so basically like 15 minutes out, 15 minutes back, and you're
well, that's where the line of sight thing comes in.
Yeah,
but I mean,
technically,
yeah, like I mean, literally, you could go a couple miles out, a couple miles back, no problem. Like, there's actually videos where guys like did full endurance of their batteries, and one guy did like 8 miles out and 8 miles back, and then he was literally on fumes when he came in and landed, and he basically crashed into the field beside him. But yeah, no, it's amazing how long some of these do last, but the new ones are even longer. So some of them are like pushing 45 minutes now. So
yeah,
that's pretty
Mine's
cool.
about 20. I'll get 20 out of mine if I'm lucky. And
but the minute you start doing like sharp turns or you go super fast, like max speed, then of course the endurance is going to go back. But every one of these ones has a battery readout, and most of them even have an automatic return to home function where you start getting below 10%, it just turns the drone around, and starts bringing it back anyways because you're just being a doofus at this time. So because you could easily lose one in the bush, and then it becomes a problem. So Denny's got a couple comments here. Yeah, they could likely use them for population counts. So. Yeah, if you want to do a population count for people, deer, rabbits, whatever, certainly can. Yeah, I used to do them from a small airplane, but yeah, if you were kind of curious as to where the big herd was or whatever, there'd be one thing you could check out months in advance or whatever.
Yeah.
Line of sight communication, yeah, he mentions that for the repeater. And then I didn't realize this, but down in the States, if you shoot one down, they consider it the same as shooting a plane down with the Federal Firearms Act. So that's only if it's a foot off the ground, and even if it's only a foot off your ground in your backyard, which is funny because we always joke about the Americans just shooting down the drones that come on my property because he owns my castle, right? But I guess it's probably a bad thing. So there you go. But yeah, if we can learn anything from Tesla's, that the cold will affect battery life.
Yeah, be careful with that.
Yeah. So on that note, funny story. My buddy was actually taking some sailboat shots over the water, and I think he had a problem with one of the propellers, but also as a battery thing, and the battery efficiency kind of fell off the rails, and he ended up putting one in the drink about 100 feet off the shore. And that gets expensive, right? Like, over $1,000 down the drain, literally. So, I mean, if you're gonna do that, if you're gonna be operating over water or whatever, you probably want to put some like pool noodles on the bottom skids if you can. They'll actually help it float a little bit. You might be able to retrieve it, at least get the batteries back out of it or something if you ruin it. But interestingly, if you put it down in the bush, like if your battery goes down and it's down to like 5% or whatever, and it just kind of sets down, there's actually like a chirp that starts going off once it lands like that. It'll actually like chirp every 10 seconds, so you can find it a little more easily. Yeah, and there are running lights on them too, so if it's nighttime, it's a little easier, but there is a problem. So if you hit a tree and it crashes or whatever, they're usually recoverable. They might have to fix some damage, but that's about it. So, recommended drones. What do you think there, Terry?
Well, I like my little DJIs, I guess, but that's all I'm familiar with. So, and they make a great drone. Like, my goodness, the cameras are fantastic, and they're just so simple to fly. You know,
Yeah,
just fly. They're great. They're just simple to fly.
yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, the fact they have an app that comes with them, that
Yeah.
kind of links into your phone and helps you control the things a little better. And I mean, the controllers are nice and compact relatively, and everything else. You get a
Mm-hmm.
little pair of joysticks, and if you can work a Nintendo game system, you can work one of these things for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, I was gonna say the same thing. Basically, the DJI Mini to start with. I mean, I think they're up to a 3, but I think they've even got a 4 Pro out. That's
Yeah.
like
They
even.
got a 4 Pro now. That's the latest and greatest. And they're
But
all under 250 grams. So of those ones, the minis.
yeah, and I think the
So
4 Pro's got even higher battery life now too. So it's like
yeah, I think it does too.
at
They're
least a half an
getting
hour
over
in the
30
air.
minutes. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, yeah, so I was gonna say always the Fly More combo, the extra batteries.
Mm-hmm.
If you have a little more money and once you get into it, the Air 3 is a really nice one. I would love to have one myself, but I don't. Let's see here. So worst case scenario, if you are really concerned about cost or whether or not you're even gonna like it, Costco of all places sells a really nice $79 drone that has like the 4K camera. Doesn't have all the bells and whistles, but I see a lot of people flying them, and they
Mm-hmm.
seem to be really durable, and they seem to be a relatively good quality product. So, yeah, maybe just if you want to just give it a really easy entry, like low cost of entry thing, just go to Costco and give it a try.
Yeah. Then if you run it into a tree, it's not so bad.
Yeah, you don't feel as bad, right? It's a good lesson learned right off the bat.
Yeah. Don't want to do it with your $1,500 drone.
Yeah, exactly. So I just threw an Amazon link in there right now if you want to grab a really really cheap logbook right now. There's I think it's on sale for $650 right now. And it keeps you legal so you can show the guy when you were flying last if he does have because they're allowed to inspect you just like anything else, right? If transport gang guy comes up and sees you flying in a city park, he's allowed to actually ask you to produce your license, produce your logbook, produce your maintenance record. So if you have it on Google Docs, it's one thing, or if you have it on a paper copy of your logbook, it's another. But they have the right to ask for anything. Just like anything else, they can ask you to see your. If you're over 250 grams, they can ask to see your license. But if not, yeah. Denise says, I guess down in the States they have a good one at Walmart.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure what brand that's like, but I like the one at Costco when they were flying off the shelves. So it seemed to be a good one. Did you have anything else from your notes?
Well, for me, I just got just like a lot of things in prepping, you can make things do double duty. You mentioned this, Ian, before with photography. I like photography, so it's kind of a hobby of mine. And okay, drone's great for photography, and it's also great as a prepper tool as well. That's what I was thinking about. And as we learn more and more things with them, hiding from them is another thing. That's probably a topic for another whole show. If the man is out looking for you, how do you hide from one of these little buggers, especially if it's got infrared and so on, right?
Well, now you're just space blankets and space blankets and everything else going on. So yeah, it's very
exactly
interesting. But even just visual, I mean, it's hard to hide from somebody straight up. If you're walking through the bush, you might think you're completely surrounded by trees, but in reality, you've got a pretty good vertical viewpoint. So it's amazing. So it's pretty much
when I was writing my books there. The last one, I used drones in it quite a bit, and I did a lot of research on them there and what the military uses for drones, and I wrote about some of that in my story. But yeah, it's amazing what they can't do, and the military's got these little wee guys that your platoon level guys can have, and they just send these things up and go flying, and they can go out and spot where the armament's set up and where this is set up and where that's set up, and then they put your lasers on them and guide in bombs and whatever. Right? It's amazing what they can do.
Well, it's amazing. I think they're hand launched too, right?
Yeah, they're hand launched. Just a little guy, Black Hornet drone. You can Google that, and I'd say it's just a little wee guy. I forget how much it weighs nothing.
And they loiter for quite a while too. Like it's not just half an hour; it's like a couple hours they can sit there and loiter for too, right?
And they can have a thermal camera on them, so you can spot where their people are dug in and spot equipment. And so, okay, we know where the bad guys are, right over there, and just call in the artillery or call in a bomb strike, and bing, bing, bing. You're not risking anybody's life to spot anybody. It's quite amazing.
What's the name of your third book again?
Retribution. This one is called.
Retribution. Okay.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah, I can see them in a shit hit the fan scenario, like you said, Terry, for being able to see where maybe if somebody's going to be approaching your house or coming up the street, doing whatever, yeah, it'd be a great thing to have.
Oh yeah, because you can see, bring that thing up 400 feet, and you can see a long ways what's coming.
Yep.
It's quite a great little reconnaissance tool. And again, seeing, if you can see what's going on, whereas the other guy can't, then it gives you a hell of an advantage. Huh?
Or even just like something like as simple as like you're evacuating from a forest fire and you want to see how the road ahead is, if it's getting overrun with flames or whatever, and you can see the flames for 5 miles away. So I mean, it's just amazing the perspective change a couple hundred feet makes.
Oh, big time, yeah.
Well, podcast challenge time.
Okay.
Sure. So we'll pop the link up there for the 30-minute video. Watch the 30-minute video and get your license.
Yeah, that's one of Don Joyce's video, and he basically pretty much guarantees you'll pass after you watch 30 minutes. So it's not that much time out of your life anyway.
I got to watch that because I haven't.
Yeah, no, it's really good. He's got some gentle piano music in the background and everything else, so it's just nice to sit back and kind of relax and do your thing there. So. Yeah.
The thing with the course, sorry for interrupting, but the thing about taking the drone course is it really gives you a lot of information on the regulations and what you can do and what you can't do and where you can fly and where you can't fly. That instead of just watching something that will help you pass the test, it'll give you some knowledge that'll keep you out of trouble, which is kind of important.
Well, I get it's the Wild West one as soon as there's an emergency on, but yeah, like in the interim, if you're trying to learn how to run these things properly and get really skilled with it, yes, you kind of got to still behave. So it's very important to know when you're misbehaving. That's for sure. Yeah,
and it's not an expensive course. It's I think it was like $70 or something like that.
Yeah, and different people have different learning styles too, right? Like some people like the lectures, some people just like watching a video, some people like just hitting the books, right? And so whatever works for you, for sure.
Yeah, the old gray hair here, he doesn't absorb stuff that quick anymore, so I gotta go through it a few times.
I think we're all with you on that one. So, right on, upcoming events.
Okay, so we got the annual preppers meet. We flog that every week. Mark it on your calendar, July 11th to the 14th in Desborough, Ontario. You can Google the Frontier Ghost Town on Google, and that's where the venue is going to be this year. It's our 10th anniversary. And it's going to be a super exciting event. Oh, sorry,
Terry. Is it still in Desborough? I thought they found a new spot. Or is it kind of around the same area?
It's close by. Oh,
it's close by. Okay.
Yeah, it's all in the same neighborhood. This Frontier Ghost Town is just another concession up or something. I've never been. I haven't seen it yet. I got to get out there. But yeah, it's close by. Perfect. Same area. Okay.
I think Denny should join us on that one. So you should, since he's here all the time on the show, he should at least pop over.
Got to pop over. We'd like to see everybody there.
And it's not a big drive for him, so anyway.
Oh yeah.
I've got let's see here, the Comox 2024 Ham Swap and Flea Market, the most Western ham fest in Canada. April 21st, 8:30 a.m. Public starts at 10 a.m. I guess, and it's called the Merivale Hall, which is just north of Courtney. Anyway, yeah. So it's any questions? There's a website there. It's email cells795@telus.net. So if anybody has a question about that, I'm probably gonna try and make it there for sure. So, weather blurb.
Yeah. So as I mentioned last week, there was a substantial warm up over the Upper Midwest, the Ohio River Basin, and the Great Lakes area. Numerous record high temperatures were recorded. Some broke records as far back as the 1930s. So there was a lot of warm weather. I'm in Central Ontario, and we hit double digits. The only exception, of course, was the Maritimes, Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, Prince Edward Island. They were on the cold side of the system, and they got snow and lots of it. There were some areas that exceeded 100 centimeters, especially around the Cape Breton Highlands area. Good news is at this point, I'm not aware of any storm-related fatalities. However, there were reports of people being stranded in their homes for several days. And what I'll get to in a second is, unfortunately, they are not out of the woods yet. There is increasing confidence in the development of a nor'easter developing over the east coast of the U.S. for early this week. There's even the possibility that it could reach what's called bomb cyclone status. Basic short story for that is a bomb cyclone is a low pressure system that drops 24 millibars of pressure in 24 hours. And that
it sounds cool too, right?
Oh, cool.
Yeah, it sounds cool. And actually it can be fairly dangerous, especially if you're in a snowstorm area, because obviously the deepening of the low pressure, the more intense the storm. But again, the more the low pressure system deepens, the more rush of air you're getting from, obviously everybody knows air goes from high pressure to low pressure. So the lower the pressure, the faster the air is trying to get from the high pressure to the low pressure. And a lot of times if it's a snowstorm and it's a bomb cyclone, you're probably going to be in a blizzard. You know, the winds are going to be that substantial. They're talking places like New York City could see a couple inches. Boston could see 6 to 8 inches, which is a pretty good storm for them. It's been quite a few years since they've seen that much snow. Unfortunately, the precursor to that is the storm has to come from somewhere. And right now it is down in the deep south. There's a blocking high over the Great Lakes, high pressure, and the way everything spins, the storm track is dropping down. It's going under, and then it comes back up the coast. So right now it's down in the warm area. In the deep south, there's several tornado warnings in effect. Actually, right now, I was just watching a live stream just before we popped on here. There's several tornado warnings in effect in south central Mississippi, Louisiana, maybe even over into Alabama. Storms will continue to move to the east and a little bit to the north. We could see potential impacts into Georgia, Florida, and even South Carolina for later tonight and into tomorrow. I'm not aware of any tornadoes that popped off tonight, but tomorrow I wouldn't be shocked to see a couple of them pop off. I think the parameters are there. They're a little bit stronger into Monday, so we'll just have to see what happens. And then as it moves up the East Coast, as I said, areas like New York, Boston, maybe even over into areas of Pennsylvania are going to see some snow. And once it gets up to where the Maritimes are, they're not exactly sure of the track. Nova Scotia is going to get something for sure. It's going to get hit. The exact line of the storm is still in flux. So I'm saying they could see anywhere from 10 to 30, maybe 40 centimeters, and potential blizzard conditions. Again, like I mentioned, due to that bomb cyclone and the gusty winds. Right now, there's a big difference in the snow totals between two of the major forecasting models that we use. One is the HRRR, and the other one is the GFS. The HRRR is showing the storm moving up the eastern seaboard and kind of going right underneath Nova Scotia and dropping some substantial snow. I'm talking 30, maybe areas of 40 centimeters, even up into New Brunswick. While the GFS shows it, once it gets kind of north of New York and into the Boston area, it makes a hard right turn and goes out, and there's only a glancing blow on Nova Scotia, and they're only calling for 10 to 15 centimeters. This is overnight, Monday into Tuesday, so there's still 24 hours for things to kind of come in line. Hopefully they don't see the massive dumping that the HRRR is putting on them. I mean, if it was me, I'd love it, but they've had their fair share and they're still digging out, so I don't think they would be happy to see another 40 centimeters. But it's there, the potential's there. Once this whole storm system kind of moves out to sea, the cold front drops down, we're going to see a drop in temperatures for, again, the Ohio Valley, mid-U.S., Great Lakes. We're looking at the potential for some snow in the Great Lakes Basin on Thursday. How much is hard to say. I'm going to guess somewhere between the 5 and 8 centimeter window, which isn't very much. It's better than nothing. There's not been a lot of chatter about lake effect snow, but personally, I can see some developing, especially since right now we're only at a 9% ice coverage for the Great Lakes, when at this time of year, we're normally in the low 30% for ice coverage. So the water's wide open. Again, everybody knows you get the cold air aloft over, and you have enough what they call fetch, which is the distance that the wind moves over the warm water. If the fetch is long enough, the temperature gradient is enough, you get lake effect snow. And considering, like I said, that there's only 9% ice coverage, the Great Lakes are wide open. So there's nothing to stop a pretty good lake effect snow event happening. Do I see a significant one happening? No, but I can see it developing, and I can see some areas in the snow belts in Ontario maybe getting 10 to 15 centimeters. But who knows? Like I said, they're not forecasting it, but I wouldn't be surprised if we got something.
Fair. Well, there you go. So hopefully the week turns out well. Yeah. Deal of the week. Explosives, you say. Tannerite, 50% off at Cabela's right now. It's till Valentine's Day. So, yeah, I mean, get your explosions on.
Okay, now, why is it on sale just before Valentine's Day? Just asking for a friend. Just asking for a friend.
Love hurts, man. Love hurts. Yeah. So, yeah, no, it's I've never seen it that cheap before. So, if your range allows it, or if you have a backyard range like Danny, probably, you can get your Tannerite and enjoy yourself for once. Yeah, link will go in the show notes as well. Shout out! This one is a quick shout out to YouTube's Don Joyce. I mentioned him a couple times there. He has a Facebook page called Don Drones On, which is pretty good. And yeah, inspiration for a lot of the reference material for today. And the guy is very knowledgeable. So yeah, thanks again to Don for that. So email review. Terry, if you wouldn't mind covering that first one.
Okay, well, we got a mail from Brian. I'm pretty sure I know who Brian is. Regarding episode 210, the annual Preppers Meet highlights. Thanks for the mention to me and Eric. I had a blast catching up with old friends and associates at the Preppers Meet, making some new ones. The annual Prepper Meet is always my favorite prepping-related event of the year. This annual gathering and training event is one of the best places in Canada for a newbie or a seasoned preppers alike to connect with the people and products they need to take the next steps in their preparedness journey. So cheers to you and the Canadian Prepper Podcast crew. That's from Brian.
Right on. Thanks, Brian. I got one from Denob, who's probably one of the original OG preppers for the Canadian online preparedness scene. So Denob from the Canadian Preppers Network says, sorry to have missed the live stream once again. Always great to hear from Joe and Amy. It was a great podcast. So thanks, Denob. That was great. Other than that, guys, well, I think I'm going to bring episode 230 of the Canadian Prepper Podcast to an end. You can find the audio podcast on iTunes, Spotify, or your favorite podcast app. Please submit a review. It helps encourage the algorithm to promote us and lets other people find the show.
And we do record these shows live on YouTube, Facebook, as long as you're not Ian. If you want an early peek at the shows, please subscribe to the YouTube channel, Canadian Prepper Podcast, and click the notifications tab. That gives you an alert when we are going live. Anybody wants to reach out to me, you can contact me at feedback@prepperpodcast.ca, or I am frequently on the Discord.
And for me, you can reach me on the annual Preppers Meet Facebook page, or you can email me at terrylblackmore@hotmail.com.
Right on. You can reach Ian directly by emailing me at theislandretreat@gmail.com. You can also find me recording on Canadian Patriot Podcast. We're live on YouTube, recording Monday evenings at 9 p.m. Eastern, as well as iTunes. I'm also mainly on Gab for online appearances. It's got an app and a website. And on Gab, there's two groups, Ham Radio Canada and Homesteading and Preparedness Canada. There you can find us discussing why society has us constructing the HK drones and the airborne repeaters for future use. Thanks for joining us. Until next time, be prepared, stay safe,
and keep learning.
Night, folks.
As we wrap up another insightful episode of the Canadian Prepper Podcast, we want to extend our gratitude to our listeners for joining us on this journey of preparedness. Remember, the key to survival is knowledge and readiness. If you want to support the show and engage with our community further, consider signing up for our Patreon and joining our thriving community on Discord. Links are in the description. If you enjoyed today's episode, please don't forget to subscribe, share, and leave us a review. This is the Canadian Prepper Podcast, signing off. Until next time, be prepared, stay safe, and keep learning.